Well, welcome and thank you for watching. This is the London system versus Emir 1000, game 2. And right below us here is the template that we use for the opening of the London system to kind of guide us in our opening moves. Now, one of the things that's unique about this game is it's only a 14-move checkmate game. Now, those do not happen very often. So let me just place a couple of caveats in here before we actually get into the game. The first is this. The reason this is a 14-move mate is not because I was able to memorize some chess trick or some chess trap in any way. This has come about, and this is my second point, because of the process of starting with the chess.com beginner bots at 600, 700, and 850. Those 12 videos that I've put together under the beginner bots of chess.com and worked through the London system with, taking each game and going into great detail about the understanding of the London, the opening, the structure, also talking about the strategy, the lines of attack, and the tactics. And then thirdly, it's all about experience, just playing these games with the London over and over and over again, progressing through the ratings from 600 to 700 to 850. And at the time of playing this game, I was probably rated around 1,000. So we've started into the intermediate bots of chess.com, and I'm playing those utilizing only the London. But again, this comes about through the process of learning that. Now, you're not going to get a 14-move mate without some blunders on the part of your opponent. That happens. However, the key is being able to recognize when that blunder is a blunder, when it happens, and then secondly, knowing how to quickly take advantage of that. Again, that comes through the process of seeing these setups from time to time, comes through the process of understanding the attacking lines of the London, and then frankly, it just comes through experience. So let's get into this game. I'm not going to go into all the opening moves. These should be familiar with you, not only the moves of the London, but the traditional counters of our opponent. This is a real typical setup with the London and the counters from Black. If you don't understand these, not familiar with these, please go back to some of the other videos where I explain these in detail. Move of c3, but now the queen comes out, and this is really the first junction of this game. And we have two choices that we've seen before. Move the b knight to, or the b pawn to b3, and then also the queen to b3. One is for a block. We could just block here. The other is to engage with a possible exchange. So in this game, I chose to just block, and the queen moves to a5. Now, one of the things that I've emphasized from time to time is, being able to break up the center of your opponent. And I decided in this game, instead of continuing on with some of the traditional moves of the London in the opening, to go ahead and begin to break this apart. So my d-pawn takes c5. Black responds with bishop to e6. And now as I look at this, I'm in a very strong position to actually kind of trap the queen. We have all of these lines covered, and the queen really has no place in which to go at this point. All I need to do is put some pressure on the queen with the b pawn to b4, and now you can see, if you look at these possible escape routes, all of these are covered. So the queen really only has one move, and that is to come all the way back to d8. And I have thwarted the queen from sitting on this fifth rank here and having to move all the way back here. However, unfortunately for Emir, he chose to castle queenside and hanging the queen. This is an easy take and capture and an exchange a pawn for a queen, no problem. So Now we have to reevaluate, a little flurry of activity, reevaluate the chessboard. What are our potential lines of attack? Light square bishop out here to b5. We could bring the queen up to a4. We could still look at bringing the knight to the coveted e5 square and begin surrounding the king. One thing I want you to notice is these defenders here are all away from the king and on really the wrong side of the king at this point, especially if there's going to be a thrust on our part of moving to the queen's side and bringing our attack that way, which seems to be the opening that we need to choose. So I bring the queen up to a4, putting pressure on this knight to capture. Knight moves back to c6, and also at the same time, smart move here, protecting this a7 pawn, otherwise my queen could come right down and take it. So again, now let's look at this setup. What are the potential? I can bring the bishop down to b5 and target the knight, and maybe we do a take and the pawn takes, and then the queen can either take or come down here and take at a7. That's one possibility. The other is to bring our knight up to e5, put pressure here, do the same scenario, take, 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 and we still have, if you look in that scenario, we still have our dark square bishop cutting off the king from escape this way. Well, Emir chose to take the knight at e5, so I'm going to take back with the bishop, wanting to still maintain the influence along this diagonal. And of course, now this is open for me to attack. Emir sees that, moves up to a6, just a block tactic similar to our opening block tactic when we move the b pawn to b3 early on. So as we look at the board right now, what are our options? Now, the first thing I see are these two pawns that serve as a block and defense of the king. I would love to find a way in which to remove those, especially doing that quickly. The reason I say that is because, once again, I'll make note of these potential defenders being away from the king and away from being positionally in a place where they can defend the king. So if there is a way in which I can take these two pawns out, that would be advantageous to me. And I do see that. This is an easy sacrifice. We'll sacrifice the bishop for these two pawns. I assume we have a take scenario. That's what I am envisioning. I'll still have my diagonal along the dark square with the bishop, and then have the queen there at a6 with no block at that point. So that's what I did. However, to my surprise, Emir did not respond by taking with the pawn, instead moving the knight to g4. I assume possibly targeting here or here the bishop or this pawn. That's actually of no consequence to me, because there is one move that brings an end to the game. So what I'd like to have you do is pause the video and find it. Okay, hopefully you found what that one move is, and it is queen to c6. You say, well, the pawn can take. No, the pawn can't take because the pawn is pinned to the king by the bishop. This is checkmate. There is, let me clear this, there's no place for the king to move, and the game is over. Again, this all comes about by seeing the opportunity, certainly by the blunders that our opponent made, but seeing those opportunities, knowing how to take advantage of them, and then moving in for the close. So I'm going to play one more game with Emir 1000. It is a 30-move game, but I'm just going to highlight the key points in that game because I think they'll help in our preparation for the other intermediate bots. So again, thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next video.